English coach, and in association with LACA Formación, bringing tailor-made solutions for you. Okay, so what we're going to look at today, I'm going to read off my list here, what's on the agenda for today. We're going to look at responding to how are you. We've done this in the past few weeks, but it's something I want to go over a few times just to internalize it. After that, we're going to look at things not to do in the UK. So if you are doing business with, and also English speakers in general, but we'll look at the UK specifically, things not to do in the UK. Onto something that is very interesting for a lot of people is pronunciation, pronouncing difficult words or words you might find difficult in English. We're going to look at a list of 10 words that people find difficult to pronounce in English. And also then we'll look at a video of some people trying to pronounce difficult words. Okay, if this is useful for you, I'm bringing you business English just to help you improve on your everyday level. And if you like it, just give it a thumbs up, and that would really help me share through your network and get me more visibility. So that would be great. Thank you very much in advance. We're going to look at some LinkedIn news where we will see vocabulary, pronunciation, synonyms, definitions, and so on. After that, we're going to look at our phrasal verb of the day. Difficult, I'll go over it for you as well. How, in a way that you will be able to use it, not just understand. So just one phrasal verb, quickly and easily. Our word of the day then we'll look at, business word of the day. After that, we'll look at an idiom of the day. And that's where we will leave it. So let's quickly jump in and go to our first topic, which is, how are you? Now, as I said before, a lot of people keep saying, I'm fine, I'm fine. This is something I am guilty of in Spanish, always saying bien, bien, bien. And that's okay, that's acceptable. But we do want to say something different from time to time. So let's look at our quick ways we can say something different in English. So we have our how are you. I'm going to make myself a little bit smaller here so that you can see what's going on. I'll bring myself down here. Okay, so we have how are you? How are you, James? Very well, thanks. How about yourself? So this can become something like when you say fine, you want it to become just a quick reaction that you don't really need to think. And these are more common for native speakers than saying fine and you. We don't use this so much. So let's have a look. How are you? Very well, thanks. How about yourself? You can say how about you. Yourself brings you closer to the person. It's quite nice. So often if you have an interview or if you're you're doing a meeting with people, yourself brings you closer to the person, and it is something I would recommend. Of course, you're always going to remember how about you or what about you. These are again more common than saying and you in English, which native people don't say as much as you think. How are you? I'm good, thanks. How about yourself? I'm good, thanks. What about yourself? Again, the next one's very common. How are you, James? No, not too bad, thanks. How about yourself? Not too bad, thanks. It's absolutely fine. It means all of these really mean exactly the same thing. No negatives here, okay? No bad, no negative. And finally, we have good, thanks. How about yourself? So again, very well, thanks. How about you? Very well, thanks. What about yourself? I'm good, thanks. What about yourself? Not too bad, thanks. What about yourself? Good, thanks. How about yourself? So using this yourself at the end, as I said, brings you closer to the people, and we will revisit this pretty much very frequently so that you can have the opportunity to say something different than you have been saying perhaps for the last number of years, which generally for most learners when they learn in school is fine, thanks, and you. And it kind of seems a bit robotic. There's no feeling from it, to be honest. And native people don't use this. I would say very, very, very little. So we're all guilty. When we learn languages, there are some things that we learn that the native people, in fact, don't say. So I live here in Spain, and there are things that people perhaps off the top of my head, maybe I use things that they don't use here in Spanish so much. So I need to be careful of this, and as well in English. It's just a tip. I'm just giving you a tip, okay? You can carry on as you are. Okay. Now, when you're in the UK, if you're doing business with people in the UK, we're going to look at some don'ts. Do not do this, because I was looking at a video earlier of don'ts, and this is what I came up with. Let me go over. You don't need to be able to read this off your screen exactly, because I'm going to read it for you. So, things not to do in the UK, United Kingdom, British people. So, the first one is don't queue jump. The queue is the line for when you're waiting to be served in a bank, in a bakery, in the supermarket. This is called a queue. So don't jump the queue. British people value politeness and fairness, like most places, I imagine. So it's important to wait your turn in a queue or in a line, and don't push in front of others. So I do have to say I was quite surprised in other countries that I've lived in, such as France, Spain here, and even these places do seem to value lines, but they're a bit more flexible. Also in Turkey, I was living in Istanbul, and I noticed the last time I went back, a lot of people started kind of jumping the queue. So it's a bit more accepted in other places, or there's different ways you do it. So what I noticed when I came here, for example, to Spain, was people were a lot more taking advantage if you were slow, for example, or if you didn't say, I'm next, they'll get in. Maybe it's something you notice, perhaps. It's definitely something I noticed here. Whereas people do queue here in certain situations, it's like, and the best queuing system as well, which is knowing the person who's in front of you. Is like, who's the last person? And then they say me, and then you know who the last person is. That's a great queuing system. However, in the UK, queues are sacred, and if you jump the queue, well, nobody likes a queue jumper anywhere, to be honest. But often they're too polite to say anything, or if they do, they'll be really angry. So don't queue jump. It's obvious, or if you're not sure, you could say, ask the person, are you next? And they'll say, oh no, I came after you, or something. But it's good to be polite in this situation. Okay, number 2, don't be too loud or disruptive in public. Disruptive is causing a change in the atmosphere. If you have a naughty boy or a girl in school and they're causing the class not to be concentrated, this is where we hear disruptive first. And we're going to look at this word later, okay? Because it's come into the business language as well. So don't be too loud in public. Being excessively loud or disruptive in public is generally considered impolite. Impolite in the UK. So try to keep your voice down and be respectful of others around you. I think we all share this, but perhaps different countries have different levels of loudness that's acceptable. Here in Spain, the loudness level is higher. The UK is lower. Then when I lived in Istanbul, it's even lower still. I have to keep your voice down. And in Ireland, where I'm from, it's similar to the UK and maybe a bit higher. So I think, for example, I have noticed here in Spain, I'll be on a train, I'll be very quiet, and then somebody will call on the phone, and then the person will speak very comfortably. And normally, I think if that were the situation in the UK, the people would be like, okay, I'm in a quiet environment, so I'm going to speak quietly on the phone. Whereas here, it's, I have a phone call, I'll just act natural. Now, there's nothing wrong with that, but it's just different places, different norms, different rules, okay? So I don't think the UK is too difficult, to be honest. I don't think you will find any problems with loudness. You just look around, and I think you're adults, you know what to do. Okay, this is a great one. don't be too touchy-feely. Touchy-feely is an expression we have for people who touch each other. Now, where I live here now in Spain, touchy-feely and being touchy-feely is very common, and it's something that you can learn to do, learn to like, and it can become natural for you. I feel myself now to be a touchy-feely person. Okay, I like to do it. It's like you just create a connection with a person, like you just tap them on the shoulder. Oh yeah, that's okay. Or and hugging when you see each other, kissing when you say hello. Very normal here, very normal in a lot of places. In the UK, it's like they're not used to it. They're just not used to it. It's not that they couldn't get used to it. It's just it's not normal. So they kind of don't know how to behave. So try not to touch people in the UK. It's the same in many different cultures as well. Japan, for example, I think don't shaking hands is acceptable. But kissing, for example, or hugging or something like this, it's not normal. It's just normal to meet people and say hello. Do you remember during the pandemic when nobody was hugging and nobody was touching and you kind of got used to it? That's exactly what it's like in the UK. It's fine. And then when they come to your country, they should behave like you behave. But we really don't. When I was growing up now, and I've lived in different places, I learned how to behave. For example, in Turkey, having close contact with another guy was very strange for me, let alone a girl. So we don't touch each other, and that's it. Don't be too touchy-feely. Don't touch people so much. Okay. Where are we? Number 4. Don't forget to say please and thank you. Politeness is highly valued in the UK, so it's important to use polite phrases like please and thank you when making requests or receiving help, and saying sorry as well. Sorry, everywhere. It's a kind of standard politeness, I would say. It's everybody says it. It's automatic. So it's not exactly even politeness. It's just more like protocol. A lot of people think we're very polite in the UK and Ireland, but actually it's just protocol. And if you forget it, people will notice and won't be so happy. So it's more like traditional protocol. Please, thank you, sorry, all the time. If somebody bumps into you on the street and hits you on the shoulder, the normal situation people use is you both say sorry. But in a situation where if someone bumped your shoulder and you said, oh, sorry, and they didn't, well, you'd probably be angry for the rest of the day, to be honest, because they hit you, you said sorry, they didn't say sorry, it was their fault, you're talking to your friend. So it turns into a whole situation. Sorry, you need to say it, okay? I noticed here, for example, in Spain, and I'm going to talk about Spain a lot because I live here, but sometimes I'll bump shoulders and I just stopped saying sorry after a while because the feeling was they didn't mean it, I didn't mean it, and we just carry on. There's no offense, but here we won't say anything. Or of course you could say, oh, like if it's bad, but if it's just a brush, nobody says anything. There was no intention. But even this in the UK could cause a problem if you don't say sorry. So take that as take it on board. Lots of pleases and thank yous and sorries everywhere. Okay. Don't litter. Okay, this is the same for most countries. The UK. Oh no, sorry. I want to go back to number 4. So please and thank you. When ordering, please and thank you all the time, okay? Here people are saying, give me 2 croissants and give me, cannot say this in the UK. You say, can I have or could I have? Please, thank you. Oh, great, thank you. Oh, so over politeness, you know? Whereas here, it's very understanding. It's like, give me that, and I want that. And who's next? And it's very, here it's, I think the feeling is there's no offense, so there's no need to be too polite. The politeness, everybody's just polite anyway. So, but you need to show your politeness in the UK. Right, moving on. Don't litter. Number 5. Don't throw your rubbish on the ground. If you have papers, don't expect somebody to pick it up. The UK has strict anti-littering laws. Littering is throwing your rubbish on the ground, and littering is considered rude and disrespectful to the environment and others around you. I think it's the same everywhere else. Don't litter. Okay, I don't know if it's accepted in your country. It's not accepted here in Spain. People do it everywhere, and they're just dirty people. I don't understand it. I don't understand it at all. Generally, there are bins everywhere, and if you can't find a bin, put it in your pocket. I'm not preaching to you. This is for everywhere, okay. But perhaps there are some cultures where you can throw things on the ground because people will clean it regularly, or public spaces are not so valued. But I don't know. Don't let this. We say in English, it goes without saying. Okay? You don't need to say it. It goes without saying. Okay. Number 6, don't forget to use the correct currency. Okay. It's a different currency. It's not the euro. You know about Brexit. It's pounds and pence. I don't need to explain that more. And drive on the left. Okay? If you're driving. Okay. Moving on. Number 7, don't be too direct or confrontational. Right, this is a good one. British people tend to value indirectness and diplomacy in their communication. So it's important to avoid being too direct or confrontational in your conversations. Right. So very often British people, I think some countries are famous, for example, like Japanese people will never say no. Often British people don't say no, because they don't want to be too direct. If you ask them to meet later, or to come over to your place on the weekend, or to do something with you after work or something, they'll probably say, oh yeah, sounds good, yeah. Like, that's just a kind of politeness. It is not an agreement. We don't like being too direct. Generally, when you ask someone to do something, they're saying yes to the idea. They'll need to internalize it. You'll need to confirm with them a few days later, and double reconfirm. You honestly need to do this around 3 times with people. So because they say yes, it's not a yes. They're just being polite. Now, indirectness as well in the workplace will be how they comment on what you're doing. Be very careful. Sometimes things sound like, oh, that's fine, that's absolutely fine. I think we looked at this before. But be careful of the indirectness. Don't be too direct with people in the UK. You need to kind of say it in a nicey way. Okay, it's the way I'm telling you now. So I think people from the United States might be a bit more direct. But it can be difficult for foreign people dealing with people from the UK with this indirectness. It's something you have to get used to and learn about. Okay, when I went to work in Istanbul, they were even, I felt, more indirect. So you need to read between the lines, because it's about not offending people. Directness offends. Where I live here in Spain, directness is the easiest method, and everybody likes it, and nobody gets offended. If we behave like this with UK people, they can be offended sometimes. It's just the way it is. And finally, don't forget to tip. Tipping is customary in the UK, and especially in restaurants and bars, where a tip of 10 to 15% of the total bill is considered appropriate. I wouldn't say bars, I would say restaurants, yes, because we don't eat out as often as you do perhaps in France or in Italy, Portugal, Spain. We're not eating out as often, so it's a bit more of a special occasion. In a bar, I would say you can tip. In Ireland, you can tip, and a good idea in the UK is offer to buy the bar person a drink. So often what they'll do is then they'll take the tip from your change. So you give them £20, for your thing, and you'll say, and one for yourself. And that means like a drink for yourself, and they'll take a bit of a tip. So they'll take the tip themselves, probably £1, probably 1.50. Generally not the price of a drink, but you say, if you're paying, and it's a great idea to go to the pubs in the UK. It's very traditional, cultural, and if you say this, and one for yourself, okay, it's a nice way to say. I was a bit confused when I went there first, because it's not something we do in Ireland. We generally give the money, we'll say, and that's for yourself, and we'll hand them the €2 or something. And remember, UK is pounds and Ireland is euro. Still in the European Union for the moment. Okay, so those are don'ts in the UK. A lot of them are common sense. You can always ask colleagues, like do's and don'ts. I think it's quite fun, these things. Sometimes very frustrating when you go to a new country. My God, when I came here to Spain, when I was in France, when I lived anywhere I've lived, I needed time to assimilate, and things seem very strange. But excuse me, you get used to it over time, and then everything seems normal. Okay, so what I was going to do after that, yes, I wanted to go on. Let me just check my list here, because I want to stick to the list. Right, do's and don'ts. Okay, so we're going to go on to pronouncing difficult words. This is kind of fun, I think. Don't forget to give me a like, spread it around your network if this is helping you. It's Easter, by the way, Easter week. We normally say Easter. Here it's Holy Week, but we don't say Holy Week in English, so it's Easter. Pasqua in French. Difficult words to pronounce in English. Let's go down. Okay, so number 1 is Rural. How do you think you would pronounce that yourself? Rural. A word that describes countryside areas that can be challenging to say because of the combination of the R and U sounds. The pronunciation is rural. Rural. Yeah, it is difficult. Rural. In Ireland, we will pronounce the R like the people from the United States or Canada, because we, excuse me, we are rhotic, which means we pronounce the middle R. Rural. Rural. Okay? Or in the United States, rural. But in the UK, it will be rural. Oh no, they pronounce the R as well. Yep. Yeah, in this case, they do. I'll give you a different one in a minute to show you the difference between the UK pronunciation and the United States, Ireland pronunciation. Okay, it's mainly based on the R. Okay, rural. In Spain, somebody told me recently, this is quite interesting because it can be offensive when you talk about people who live in the countryside. You need to say in rural areas, or what I said somebody told me the other day in Spanish, it was better to say people from the towns. Now, we don't say that in English. We say rural areas, which means you have urban, which is the city, and rural, which is the countryside. So he said gente de los pueblos or something like this. So it is quite important. I'll let you know of any of these things that can be offensive as well in English. So people from rural areas. Okay, the next one, number 2, again the R. Squirrel. A small furry animal that can be challenging to pronounce because of the combination of the S and the QU sounds. Right. Any idea? The pronunciation is squirrel. Squirrel. Like Squid Games. Squirrel. It's almost like an RUL. Squirrel. Two syllables. Squirrel. There you go. This one we don't see so often. I think this next one, number 3, is difficult for anybody to pronounce in English or foreign people, or even foreign is not a good way to say it in English. People from abroad or non-native speakers. Anemone. It's a type of flower that can be difficult to say because it's unique pronunciation that begins with A. And this comes out like Nemone. I wouldn't worry about this one. You'll probably only see it in difficult words to pronounce. Okay, the next one is Colonel. A military rank that can be challenging to pronounce because it sounds nothing like its spelling and it has a silent L. Yes, this is a military rank. I don't know what it is in Spanish, but I'm going to find out. Phrasal verb, which means discover. And the pronunciation, I will tell you right now, is colonel. Colonel. Like a Kernal. Let me put it in. Colon. Colonel. Okay, colonel. Coronel. It's pretty much the same. Colonel. Coronel. In Spanish, that is. I haven't looked it up in French. Okay, a difficult one. It has nothing got to do with the spelling, as often is the case in English. English is crazy. Don't worry about it. Don't get crazy. It is just the way it is, okay? Forget about the spellings. Can you imagine what it was like for us when we were in school? We had to do the spelling test, and the teacher was saying, okay, next word, colonel. And we're like, okay. And there's no way you could guess unless you practiced for your spelling test. And every week we would have a spelling test. Okay, the next one is pronunciation, okay? A word that describes how words are said, which can be challenging because of its many syllables and the N and U. Okay, yes, it is pronunciation, but we pronounce words. So sometimes people say, when they're speaking, they say pronunciation. But the actual spelling is pronunciation. I don't think it's too difficult to pronounce. I think it's difficult in your mind when you're talking, but if you see it written, pronunciation. No, that's how it is. Okay, the next one obviously is difficult, and a lot of place names are very difficult in the UK. This one is Worcestershire. It's a type of sauce that can be difficult to say because of its many silent letters and the SH sound in the middle. Worcestershire. Yes. Areas of the UK are divided into counties, and a lot of these counties end with shire, and the pronunciation is shire, like sure, yeah, okay, sure. So you have Buckinghamshire, Oxfordshire, Cambridgeshire, Worcestershire, Leicestershire. So all of these shires are the different regions of the UK. There's many, we'll call them counties, and there are many different counties in the UK. Okay, the next one definitely is difficult. Number 7 we are on to. Let me bring my mouse over here. And that is THOROUGH. A word that describes something that is complete and can be challenging to pronounce because of the TH and O sounds. The pronunciation here is thorough. Thorough. I'm trying to think of something that can make it easier for you. Thorough. It means to look at something in depth, carefully. So have a thorough read of the essay. Look at it deeply. Thorough. Okay, next one, number 8, is CINNAMON. And it's a spice that can be challenging to pronounce because of the C and the N. What do you think? Any? Can you try and pronounce it out loud? Cinnamon. Cinnamon. It's like an M-U-N. Cinnamon. Cinnamon. I like to have cinnamon with some yogurt. Personally, I like cinnamon with a bit of natural yogurt. Q. And honey, by the way. Cinnamon with honey and yogurt. Natural yogurt. Yes, please. Okay. Q. A line of people. I shouldn't have said that. Q-U-E-U-E. A good way to remember how Q is spelt is if you get it like a Q-U-E-U-E. Q-U-E-U-E. A line of people or things that became challenging to say because of its unique spelling and the U-E sound at the end. Q. It's not a... Oh, okay. Q. Yes, it was the EU sound at the end. EUE sound, Q. Yes, just pronounce it like the very first letter. It's pronounced exactly like the first letter. Q. CHOIR, a group of singers that can be challenging to pronounce because of the CH and OI sounds. Okay, this is pronounced choir. Think of a wire, a piece of metal, like a metal thread. That's a wire. Or the wire for your computer and your plug. The wires are all over your desk. That's the wire. Choir. And there's the pronunciation. What we're going to do now is we're going to move across and we're going to look at a video of some French people trying to pronounce some of these words. So if you had any difficulty, let's see what these guys have to deal with. Let's have a look at these guys. I'm going to put on my headphones. 1 second. It's a good way to say 1 second. Is when you want somebody to wait for a... When you want somebody to wait for a moment, we say 1 second. Okay, here we go.
C'est un mot, ça?
Right, let me turn up the volume here. I'm going to make this bigger. And we're going to look at these guys trying to pronounce.
Mais t'es sérieux, toi? Bon, arrête tes conneries.
Thorough.
Mais non, mais ça se prononce pas, ça.
Oh putain. Thorough? Thorough.
Thorough.
Thorough. Attends.
Hedgehog.
C'est une ville, ça, je pense, ouais. Ouais.
Hedgehog. Hedgehog.
Hengeho.
Ah, c'est facile, ça. C'est hérisson. Hedgehog.
Hedgehog. On dirait que je parle en allemand. Hedgehog.
So hedgehog, by the way, is hérisson, I think, in Spanish.
Squirrel.
Ah oui, c'est chiant, ça.
Squirrel.
We had this earlier.
Squirrel.
Squirrel friend. Squirrel.
Je croyais le maîtriser, mais pas du tout. Squirrel. C'est un écureuil. Massachusetts.
Okay, this is an area of the United States, Massachusetts.
Massachusetts.
Massachusetts. Ah putain, il est dur.
Massachusetts. Massachusetts.
Donc ça, c'est l'État, hein.
Massachusetts.
Massachusetts. Ah putain, mais c'est dur en fait.
Massachusetts.
Lettuce.
I don't know if you noticed the pronunciation of, at the beginning, the girl said lettuce. And this is a very American way of pronouncing the T's, very soft, lettuce. I do it myself. Whereas a UK person could say lettuce, the stronger T. I don't know if you noticed, by the way, this boy here in the back being dragged by his father. I think I've done this with my child in the garden before. Okay, let's go on.
Lettuce. Moi j'ai envie de le dire à l'italienne parce que j'étais en Erasmus en Italie, mais lettuce.
Lettuce.
A bit of lettuce. Lettuce.
Romaine lettuce. Bacon lettuce, tomato.
Though.
Okay, the pronunciation of this word is though. Though.
Qu'est-ce que c'est que ces mots?
Through.
Thorough. Je peux pas faire mieux.
Through.
Because often what you have been taught is that the TH in English is like a silent TH, like 1, 2, 3. But it has two sounds, and one of them is it's spoken. I'm using my voice. I'm using my voice here. Though. I'm not stopping to say though. I'm saying though, mother, brother, though.
Ça se dit though.
She got it correct.
Jeweler.
Jeweler.
C'est chiant, ça.
Jeweler.
Ah, facile ça, facile. Là, le mec se chie en deux quoi.
Jeweler. Jeweler. Jeweler.
Jeweler. Jeweler. Ah, oh, il fout.
A jeweler is a person who owns a jewelry shop selling gold and diamonds and jewelry.
Autant de syllabes là.
Psychophysicotherapeutics.
Well, we're going to break this down. Psycho, physico. A lot of people say psycho, but it's in English it's psy. Psycho, physico, therapeutics. Here with pew. Psychophysico. This is just something to confuse people.
Oh non.
Mais t'es sérieux toi? Bon, arrête tes conneries.
Psychopsychotherapeutics.
Psycho.
J'ai oublié des syllabes, hein.
Therapeutics.
Psychophysicotherapeutics. Psychophysicotherapeutics.
Ça s'est bien passé?
Pas du tout. C'est pas facile, hein.
Okay. So that's French people trying to pronounce. And yeah, there are always difficult words to pronounce, one at a time. Right now we're going to jump into, in fact, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go across and look at some, oh, I hope this doesn't go on me because I'll need to stop it if it does. Okay, yes, no, great. We're going to look at some vocabulary here. And I'm going to take off my headphones. Let's look at some vocabulary here. Right, what have we got? Labor costs. This is from the news. We're going to vocabulary pronunciation kind of thing. Okay, don't forget, give me a thumbs up, share it to your network. I'm not trying to help you with your business English here. And let's go. Okay, labor costs. Hourly wages. Wages are what you get paid, up by 5% across the EU. Average hourly labour costs in the EU increased by €1.50 an hour from 2021 to 2022 to €30.50. Okay, so obviously it was a bit less than €30.50. Bulgaria has the lowest wage of €8.20 an hour, and Luxembourg has the highest of €50.70 an hour. Wow. There's a big difference there. Annual, meaning yearly, labour cost inflation for the EU sat at 5%, but general inflation was 9.2% across the bloc. Okay, so here we have numbers, 2021, 2022, 150. If something costs €1.50 in Ireland, in the UK, they won't say pounds or euros. They'll just say 150, please. So if you pay for something and it costs 150 or 350, they won't say pounds or euros or pence or cents. It's just 150, 125. Very simple, very easy, saving on saying words. And then down at the very last, at the very bottom, we see 9.2%. Okay, let's move across then. And I can't. Here we go. Number 2. Okay, oil. OPEC Plus cuts output by 1 million more barrels. I heard about this yesterday, yeah. OPEC Plus, this is the plus sign. And Saudi Arabia are cutting their oil production by more than 1 million barrels a day from May. That means starting in May, from May, in a surprise move. Experts predict the move will raise oil prices, like they will raise oil prices by $10 per barrel. The reduction brings the total volume of cuts to 3.66 million barrels per day since October, Reuters reports. Now, some people, 3.60. Yeah, I think what we normally do when we talk about numbers is most people will say 3.66 million instead of saying 3.66 million. Now you can say 3.66, but often you will hear people after the point, they'll say the individual 3.71, 3.66. I don't know why we do it, but it is what's common. And if it were a 0 in front of the 0.66, they would say 0.66. So just to make your life a little bit more difficult. Okay, communications. I saw something about this in the newspaper earlier. It's 50 years since the first mobile phone call. On the 3rd of April 1973, Motorola engineer Marty Cooper made the world's first call on a mobile phone. The basics of how a call works hasn't changed much since. Though, you see, when you learn new words and pronunciation, you see them everywhere. Though the hasn't changed much since, though the device has. The original had 30 minutes talk time, took 10 hours to charge, and weighed 790 grams. Nearly 4 times the latest iPhone, reports the BBC. Okay, so yes, I remember someone having something pretty similar when I was in university. Yep. Okay. Yes, as you can see up here on 3 April 1973, I said on the 3rd of April, but something that's becoming more common now is April 3, April 4. This is something to keep an eye on because it is changing, and the way we say numbers is changing. It's I think it's going to become easier for you guys, luckily. Idea of the day. There is still time to save the climate. If you find yourself dwelling on the doom and gloom, we hear this all the time, doom and gloom, okay? The negativity. Doom is like, oh, we're all going to die. Gloom is like, there's no light, it's dark, you know? Doom and gloom of climate crisis news. Remember that there are many people working towards its resolution. Yes, it's bad, but we can fix this. We fixed world wars, COVID, and even the ozone layer. We can still have an amazing future, a better climate, and a healthy planet. Okay, please God. Please God is a common way to say hopefully. Often people will say please God. Right, today's debate. How can you protect yourself against stress? Julia O'Sullivan, head of people development, Jigsaw Better Business. We can choose how much attention we pay to our thoughts. How can we enhance that sense of control over our thoughts and reduce stress? Practice mindfulness. Build time into the day to pause and reflect. Ask, will this matter in a year's time? Change surroundings and move the body, challenge assumptions. So just get out, have a 5-minute break, get outside, change your environment. Okay, I do agree. Lots of this we see on these platforms, but you know, I think a good way to start is just do something small and let it build. Okay. Right, we're going to move across now, and our next thing was our phrasal verb, which was to go over. To go over is something I don't know if I put the definition, but I can explain it to you. Okay. Right. So what it is we're going to look at some examples and you will see what it means. Okay. It means to look at something in detail, to examine, to review. Let's have a look at some examples. Number 1, go over the budget. To review and examine the budget in detail. So we looked at touch base last week. So let's touch base on Wednesday to go over the budget. So we're going to review and examine the budget in detail. Okay, let's touch base. Let's meet to go over the proposal. To read through a proposal carefully to evaluate its merits and potential impact. To go over a proposal. To read through a proposal carefully. You're examining, you're reviewing. Right, number 3, to go over a plan. Let's touch base to go over the plan. To review and discuss a business plan or strategy with colleagues or stakeholders. Stakeholders is everybody involved in a project. Go over the agenda. to review and the topics or items to be discussed in a meeting or event. So I made an agenda for this stream, and before streaming, I'll go over the agenda and go, okay, put this first, then we'll have this, then we'll have this. That's on the agenda. I'm going to go over, I'm going to look at it again, and I'm going to review it. Right. Number 5, go over the figures, which means numbers, to examine and analyze financial data, such as revenue or expenses. Right. Let's talk on Friday to go over the figures. Let's touch base next week to go over the contract, to carefully review a legal agreement or contract to ensure all terms are understood. Let's go over the details, to examine the small specific aspects of a project or task. So let's touch base from last week. Remember, touch base is to meet. Let's touch base on Tuesday to go over the details of what? The contract, of the first quarter results, or whatever the details of whatever. Okay, number 8 is let's go over the report, to read through a report carefully to evaluate its accuracy and relevance. Go over the timeline, to review the schedule for a project or task to ensure it is feasible and on track. So let's have a look at it, let's review it, examine, and finally go over the expectations, to discuss and clarify what is expected of employees or team members in a particular situation. The expectations of anybody is like, let's look at the expectations, let's go over them and talk about them. That is our phrasal verb, to go over. And now we're going to move on to our word of the day, which we met earlier, which was disruptive. It's when something or someone is causing problems to what is normal or what is the status quo. So if somebody's misbehaving in a classroom or talking loudly in an office, they are disrupting everybody. Okay, but we're going to look at this in a business sense, and let's look at our definition. Causing significant change in an industry or market. You'll often hear of something is disruptive or disruptors. Let's have a look at some examples of disruptors in business. So I'll read it. You don't need to read from the screen. Netflix disrupted the traditional video rental industry with its subscription-based on-demand streaming service, which allowed users to watch movies and TV shows online or through a mobile device. The company's disruptive approach to content distribution led to the downfall of established industry players like Blockbuster and changed the way people consume entertainment. It was a disruptor. Before that, we had Blockbuster. You needed to go to the video store to get a video and rent one. Netflix was a disruptor. Next is Uber. Uber disrupted the traditional taxi industry by introducing a mobile app that connects drivers with passengers in real time, allowing for more convenient and affordable transportation. Affordable would mean you can get it, you can pay for it, it is cheaper. The company's innovative approach to ride sharing has challenged established taxi companies and created a new market for transportation services. It disrupted the traditional taxi industry. Amazon disrupted the retail industry with its online shopping platform, offering a wide selection of products and fast, convenient delivery. The company's disruptive approach to e-commerce has forced brick and mortar retailers, brick and mortar means fixed, in a fixed place, in a fixed building, to adapt and change their business models to remain competitive. And if I go down, we've got a few more. Tesla disrupted the automotive industry with its electric vehicles and innovative technology, challenging traditional car manufacturers and paving the way for a new era of sustainable transportation. The company's focus on innovation and environmental responsibility, electricity, has reshaped the automotive industry and pushed other manufacturers to develop their own electric cars. Tesla was a disruptor. Airbnb finally disrupted the hospitality industry with its online platform that allows homeowners to rent out their properties to travelers, providing an alternative to traditional hotels and accommodations. The company's disruptive approach to lodging has created a new market for travel accommodations and changed the way people book and experience travel. And these all are big disruptors. So what are the disruptors in your industry? You can leave a comment if you like. AI certainly could be an interesting disruptor. Okay, in the English industry, I suppose teaching would be a disruptor, would be Google Translate, would be a disruptor. Okay, let's go through and we're on to our idiom of the day. Okay, this is quite useful in the business sense. You can say this in meetings. I think it's good. It's put all your eggs in one basket. Here we have a basket and here are eggs, colored because it's Easter. Okay, I hope you noticed a little detail. If you didn't, I'm telling you. Let's look at the definition. Okay. To put all your eggs in one basket is to rely on one strategy or investment for success without having a backup plan. An example would be, I wouldn't invest all my money in one stock. It's important not to put all your eggs in one basket. So in the stock exchange, putting all my money into tourism or that kind of thing, and then the pandemic hits, COVID, and then nobody's traveling, all my eggs are in one basket and I fail. Okay, I lose all my money. That would be an example. Let's see if I have any more for you down below. Right, examples of putting all your eggs in one basket would be a startup that relies solely on one product. A startup that only produces and sells one product puts all of its resources and efforts into that product's success. If the product fails or loses popularity, the company's revenue stream will suffer. Okay, they're putting all their eggs into one basket. They need to diversify. A company that relies on one supplier. If a company relies solely on one supplier for its raw materials or products, it risks facing supply chain disruptions if that supplier is unable to meet their needs and goes out of business. A typical example would be perhaps a UK company relying on products coming from France through the Channel Tunnel, which is the tunnel under the sea. And then, of course, what happens quite often are strikes, huelgas, or les grèves in French. And this can be a big disruption to supply chain. They have all their eggs in one basket, basically a supplier from France or from all coming under the tunnel. They need suppliers from coming by air, coming by ship. Okay, that's a company. A business, number 3, that only targets one customer demographic. A business that targets only one demographic, let's say younger people, such as a particular age group or geographic location, limits its potential customer base and risks losing its entire customer base if that demographic's needs or preference changes. So TikTok, for example, is very popular at the moment, but really popular among young people especially. But TikTok would be advised to focus on other people as well, making business TikTok, making it more useful for all demographics, because if something new and cool comes along, the young people will just all leave TikTok and then TikTok will fail. So TikTok needs to diversify and not put all its eggs in one basket. As far as I know, they are creating a model for business. Okay. Number 4, a company that invests heavily in one technology. A company that invests heavily in one technology risks losing its investment if that technology becomes obsolete or no longer in demand. Trying to think of an example here. Putting all their eggs in one type of basket for technology. Can't think at the moment, but it's definitely, I mean, maybe BlackBerry, they're basically gone now, but I don't know what the one technology there was. But they didn't diversify. They put all their eggs into one basket, I think, in the sense of the demographic of business people. And then a business that only sells in one market, a business that only operates in one market or geographical location, risks losing its entire customer base if that market experiences a downturn or the local economy takes a hit. All right. So you have some examples there of putting all your eggs in one basket. Try to use, it's very common in business to say we don't want to put all of our eggs in one basket. Very common in business. I hope it's been helpful for you today. If you liked it, if you've stayed with me till the end, give it a like, and please do let your friends know. Thank you to all the people who have joined me for the first time. Very glad to have you on board, and I hope I can help you with your business English. I'll be back soon, so take care and all the best, and I'll see you later. Thanks for joining.